Okay, 2 videos ago, we made a video talking about the Detroit Red Wings, and I shared my thoughts as to how the Wings shouldn't be in a position to give up significant assets for pieces that might be on their way out soon. And I use that argument to talk about Calgary Flames D-man Rasmus Andersson. But now, we are flipping the script on its head because today what I wanted to do was talk about New York Rangers superstar forward Artemi Panarin. Because not only is Artemi Panarin's name heating up as a potential NHL trade option, but there was an article that was written about that includes the Red Wings on a list of potential destinations, along with a few other teams. So, without further ado, let's go out there and talk about Breadman. Artemi Panarin is 34 years old, 5'11", 176, a right-handed left winger, making $11.6 million a year till the end of this season. He has been one of the most expensive wingers in the National Hockey League the past few years. I think with all the Marner stuff that went on over the past few seasons, there was a period where Panarin was the highest paid winger in hockey. Something like that. The contract that he is on started out back in 2019-20, so it's been a while for Panarin to be on this deal. And we all understand the story here. We all remember when Panarin made his debut in the National Hockey League, which was literally 10 seasons ago. It was 2015-16. He came over as a 24-year-old from Russia, and he was a point-per-game guy playing with Patrick Kane and the Chicago Blackhawks. And even though Connor McDavid had a higher point-per-game metric than Panarin did, the fact that Panarin played the full season and McDavid was hurt halfway through gave Panarin the Calder over McDavid. It was a really big deal back then, and I am still very fond of those times. But it's been a decade since Artemi Panarin first suited up in the National Hockey League, and he is still as good as he has ever been. Yes, he got off to a rough start at the beginning of the season, but now he's got 44 points in 42 games. He is on pace for yet another point-per-game campaign. He has been a point per game ever since 2018, essentially. Panarin has been one of the best players in the league, and when you look at his splits, I mean, look at this ungodly level production from the recent sample of games. 3 points against Florida at the Winter Classic, 2 points against Washington, 2 points against Washington, 2 points against Philadelphia, and then every other point goes out there and follows suit. There was a pointless stretch at the end of October, start of November, but he has fully bounced back from that, and he has gotten 12 points in his last 10. So Artemi Panarin is still very good, but recent reports suggest that he may not actually want to take a discount to stay with the New York Rangers. In fact, he might not be willing to take any sort of a smaller contract or debatably a lesser termed contract than one would normally assume a 34-year-old ends up signing. Normally for guys in this age range, you would assume, okay, maybe he signs a short-term bridge deal, maybe he gets a 3-4 year deal that's a lot less in the dollar amount because you can't really project if these guys are going to stay as good as they age, but based off of everything we have heard about Artemi Panarin, seems like the guy believes in himself, and his number on the dollars is going to represent that. So, which is why, when you take a look at the New York Rangers and the position they're at, folks are debating whether or not the timeline for this team to be competitive is already over, whether or not that window is closed. They already made a trade for JT Miller. Is that looking all too great? I get that he's an Olympian, but still. Now we are entering the territory of Artemi Panarin trade discussion, and this was written about by one Jeremy Tingley on NHLTradeRumors.me. Now, I get it. You can say, all right, well, the source isn't really going out there and citing anybody official. That's fair. Very fair. But I like this piece because it goes out there and gives us some ideas. Take a look at the 3 trade destinations that Tingley goes out there and writes about. The Rangers enter 2026 3 points out of the second wild card. However, they have several teams to leapfrog, and the Buffalo Sabres, who are red hot and occupy the last playoff spot, have 3 games in hand. There's going to be some major decisions to make on Broadway, and the one of them is the trade of star forward Artemi Panarin. Panarin is the biggest name on the rental list, as he is on the trade market as a pending UFA. The Rangers have not held any contract extension talks with him, and a trade is expected before the Olympic break. He has 41 points in 41 games, and is set to earn over $11 million and holds a no-move clause. So he has all the say in the matter. Here are 3 teams Panarin could be open to joining for their playoff push to the Stanley Cup. And number 1 is a team that I know Russian folks generally like to go to because of their storied history. It is none other than the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are surprising everybody this season and enter 2026 in first place in the Atlantic. Detroit has cap space, they have the trade assets, and they have one of Panarin's best friends in Patrick Kane. Detroit is a heavy favorite, and don't forget Captain Dylan Larkin called out management last year for not taking a run at a big name ahead of the deadline. Okay, so conversations about Rasmus Andersson, yeah, I get it. You don't want to trade away future assets for a guy that you're not guaranteed to bringing back. But there's a part of me that feels like if Artemi Panarin was a Red Wing, he would... Okay, I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouths, but I feel like there would be a chance that he decides to stay, especially if Patty Kane is there. Just take all the offensively productive Blackhawks from the 10 years ago era and just bring them onto Detroit in 2026, why don't you? DeBrincat, Kane, and Panarin on a power play? Oh boy, that's disgusting. Absolute nutty territory. And obviously, Panarin, being one of the most productive NHL wingers the past few years, would provide a crazy level of offensive productivity. I do question, though, because Panarin is traditionally left wing. He is a right-handed guy. There are already 2 other right-handed forwards on the Red Wings forward core that play significant wing positions in DeBrincat and Lucas Raymond. Now, I get it, on 5-on-5 play, it's not going to be that big of a deal because Panarin could play left and Raymond could play right, and then DeBrincat and Kane could be on the second line. But then again, I wonder, if you try to get some power play movement going, do you only have one left-handed player in Dylan Larkin if you go that route? Actually, no. You would have to move one of those Chicago guys off to the second unit, right? You would have to go Larkin, Raymond. You're not going to move those 2 from the top power play. Then you would have Panarin. Then you'd have Kane, and then you need a D-man. So one of okay, well, DeBrincat's already on the second pairing anyway. It's tough. But Detroit is one of 3 teams that are written about in this article. Let's go out there and talk about the Anaheim Ducks. They're a surprise in the West, and they have an aggressive GM in Pat Verbeek who wants to give his team a chance to make some noise in the playoffs. The Ducks and Rangers have made multiple trades together recently, so don't be surprised to see one more this season involving Panarin. Now, that would be crazy too. The Ducks have cooled off a little bit since their super hot start at the beginning of the year. Leo Carlsson also getting hurt puts a dampen on their success. But you think about Trouba, Kreider, the success that those guys have had in Anaheim thus far, having another one of these guys, come on down, Artemi Panarin. You can join Strome, you can join Trouba and Kreider, bring them back over and get everybody reunited one more time. Man, it's like that Detroit and Chicago connection, is it not? But of course, if there were some sort of a big trade to bring Panarin over to California, it would just up the ante in this very competitive Pacific Division. I say competitive as if they're all good. No, they're all kind of like mid. But with Marner going over to Vegas and Edmonton still having some pretty poor results, and you have Panarin in the mix potentially with Anaheim, it would totally change things up. And then finally, there's a conversation at the bottom here. The Hurricanes have been searching for another top 6 forward all season, and GM Eric Tulsky won't be shy about making another bold move ahead of this year's trade deadline. The Rangers and Hurricanes have completed a big trade last year, and another one could be feasible. The Canes have checked in on Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, Steven Stamkos, and Shirley Panarin. Keep an eye on them, as they are big fish hunting once again this season. And then linked at the bottom is a clip from last month, The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, wherein Molly Walker, Merrick, and Greg Wyszynski talk about the idea of an Artemi Panarin trade. This is obviously an interesting idea, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments. How would you feel about a Panarin move if you are a fan of the Hurricanes, the Ducks, or the Red Wings? Carolina getting Rantanen and then Panarin in back-to-back years would be quite something. Is it enough to finally push them over the hump and get Rod the Bod's team into a Stanley Cup final for the first time in forever? Who knows? Is Artemi Panarin the guy to get that done? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99 and bye.